Before the middle-aged man raised his head, Qing Chen thought he was deaf. Such a big commotion around him, but it didn't seem to affect him at all. However, after the middle-aged man raised his head, Qing Chen almost thought he himself was deaf. The originally bustling square fell silent in an instant, without a single superfluous sound. The surprise in the eyes of the crowd, and some inexplicable emotions, seemed to be highlighting the man's identity because in the past, this middle-aged man had never responded to anyone's plea for help. Suddenly, Qing Chen let out a sigh of relief, because all this proved that he had made the right bet. The middle-aged man didn't say anything to him, but calmly moved the red pawn forward on the chessboard. The black pieces he held chose to retreat, killing the pawn that had just advanced. Qing Chen watched the chessboard quietly from a distance. The four brigands capturing the king endgame was quite famous on Earth, with two layout forms, and the one in front of him was the more dangerous one. The so-called endgame generally means that the black side is bound to win, and the red side can't even make a draw. If it's a draw, it's considered to have solved the endgame, but Qing Chen was not satisfied with a draw. The four brigands capturing the king endgame was a bit peculiar. The red side had four pawns that had crossed the river and reached the end line, and both chariots were still present. The situation seemed to be evenly matched, but in fact, this endgame was full of traps and killing moves. The black side could win the game with just one move, while the red side could only run around in panic. One misstep, and they would think they had the game in their hands, only to be killed in return. This was a seemingly hopeful, but despairing endgame. Continue, the middle-aged man said flatly. Qing Chen said, pawn 2 moves to 3. The middle-aged man's eyes lit up, and it seemed that he was really interested. He didn't bother to move the chess pieces on the chessboard, but directly closed his eyes and played blind chess with Qing Chen. King 6 moves forward 1. Qing Chen also closed his eyes. Rear chariot moves forward 4. Bishop 7 retreats 9. By the 6th round, Qing Chen suddenly said, chariot 1 moves forward 7. The middle-aged man's closed eyes suddenly opened again. He looked at Qing Chen in surprise. Bishop 5 retreats 7. In the first 5 steps, the two sides were plain and unremarkable. But after the 6th step, the two sides began to exchange pieces step by step. I kill you. You kill me. Blood flows like a river, and the battlefield is full of mourning soldiers. The decisiveness of the two sides on the chessboard was extremely cruel. The two were like the calmest generals on the battlefield, sacrificing everything for the final victory. I and the four brigands capturing the king endgame, the two of them brought out a spirit of bravery. However, behind this bravery were their deep calculations. At the beginning of the game, Qing Chen's red side had 4 pawns across the river, which seemed more fierce. But he sacrificed the 4 pawns one by one to exchange for other plans, leaving only the last one. Chariot 1 moves to 4. King 4 moves to 5. Cannon 4 moves to 5. Chariot 3 moves to 5. On the 15th move, Qing Chen finally let out a long sigh of relief. Pawn 5 moves forward 1. The end is in sight, capture the king. It wasn't until this moment that the solution to the four brigands capturing the king endgame finally burst out with an indescribable charm. The situation where the two sides were killing each other on the battlefield made the middle-aged man feel as if he was really on the battlefield. Confronting a strategist, every move in this game was extremely dangerous. What surprised the middle-aged man the most was that the young man in front of him was not old. But he didn't hesitate at all when he was sacrificing pieces to change the game. It's important to never give up and never abandon, but war is war. How can there be no sacrifices in war? He quietly looked at the young man in front of him. The latter was also looking at him, his face serious and stubborn. It seemed that he wanted to fight his way out of this desperate situation and start a new life. He understood that he was playing chess, while the other party was trying to survive in an environment surrounded by steel beasts, and their attitudes were inherently different. No one noticed that at this moment, of the 210 surveillance cameras in this prison fortress, 81 of them had turned directly towards Qing Chen. The black camera lens of the surveillance camera was contracting like a vortex, as if it was trying to focus on Qing Chen's face. No one knew who was focusing on the other side of the surveillance camera. The middle-aged man smiled and turned the black king upside down on the chessboard. Interesting, there aren't many people who can play Chinese chess these days. Let's continue tomorrow. After saying that, he walked towards the reading area with his hands behind his back, leaving the chessboard on the dining table, which no one dared to touch. The gray cat on the table stood up and quietly followed the middle-aged man. When the cat was curled up, it looked like a fur ball and didn't look very big. However, when it stretched out, Qing Chen realized that the cat was over a meter long and exceptionally agile. Ordinary cats walk lightly, which is why people call it catwalk. But this cat walked with the posture of a tiger. Everyone in the square who was watching here was stunned. Was the endgame won by the young man? To be honest, they didn't understand Chinese chess either. When the two sides started playing blind chess, they understood even less. There were too many entertainment activities in this era, each of which was more exciting and fun than Chinese chess. They could use chips to directly obtain pleasure, and could also log into the virtual network with their consciousness. This was an era when happiness was very cheap, and there were very few people who played Chinese chess. Even if you play well, can you beat artificial intelligence? However, they were surprised that Qing Chen won against the middle-aged man. In their eyes, how could that middle-aged man lose? whether it's chess or combat, how can he lose? To be honest, Qing Chen also found it strange. This middle-aged man obviously didn't have any mechanical limbs, nor did his two followers. Why was his prestige so high in this prison where steel beasts ran rampant? The young man who had been blocking Qing Chen earlier winked at him. Impressive. My name is Lin Xiao. He's Yuan. See you tomorrow. After saying that, he and another young man named Yuan left with the middle-aged man. Qing Chen didn't even know the name of the middle-aged man at this point, he only knew the names of the two followers. But now is undoubtedly a good start. The tense atmosphere in the square didn't ease until the middle-aged man and his followers, Yuan and Lin Xiao, all went to the reading area. The prisoner who had just been hosting the newcomers was still pulling the newcomers into the cell. Including him, there were 12 newcomers in total, and 9 of them had already been pulled in. At this point, when Qing Chen looked at the prisoners again, no one was plotting against him anymore. Suddenly, a young man with mechanical legs ran up to Qing Chen, anxiously saying, "We're both new here, help me, and I'll listen to you from now on." The surrounding prisoners watched coldly. They were still somewhat unclear about the situation. They knew they couldn't touch Qing Chen, but if this young man wanted to protect the other newcomers, they wouldn't be pleased either. However, Qing Chen seemed to turn a deaf ear to what the young man was saying, his expression as calm as if he hadn't heard anything. The prisoners laughed and forcefully pulled the young man away. "You guys!" The young man yelled. "My uncle is a director of the Changming Corporation in City 17. Before he could finish his sentence, the other prisoners laughed uproariously. Apart from the 5 major corporations, other companies are worthless. Even if your uncle were to come to this prison fortress, he would have to behave. Qing Chen silently listened to all of this, absorbing all the useful information. He had just been identifying the identities of these newcomers, trying to see if there were any other Earth people hidden among them that he himself had crossed over, completely devoid of memories of this world, and even now he didn't know how many years he had been sentenced to. Qing Chen believed that others also had no memories. So those like this young man who could talk about relationships outside the prison were probably not his compatriots. Among the 12 new prison mates, the Earth people should only be that collapsed teenager in him. For some reason, Qing Chen didn't feel disheartened at all, but rather looked forward to his drastically different life. A drastically different life. The phrase sounded very tempting when your own life has already become a mess, and someone puts a button in front of you saying, "Press this, and you'll have an extraordinary life." But after pressing it, there are 2 possibilities: it might get better, or it might get worse. Would you press it? Qing Chen felt that he would. On Earth, he seemed to have always been an extra person. His father found him a burden, his mother had a new family, and his relatives rarely interacted with him. Qing Chen had been alone for 2 spring festivals. So, if your past life was all gloom, then, no matter how dangerous, unknown, or terrifying the new world is, it would still be somewhat exciting. This world was different. For Qing Chen, coming from Earth to here was like an adventure in a life of rebellion, and also like a release from the past. If it hadn't been for this countdown incident, he would have studied hard, worked hard to support himself, and then used his unique memory to get into a good, far-off university, never to return. But that kind of life seemed to still be meaningless. He believed that there weren't many people who had crossed over with him on Earth. Even if there were thousands or tens of thousands, compared to the total number, it was still a very small ratio. This made him feel special. Countdown 39 to 31 to 29. Qing Chen quietly observed everything around him, planning to record all the information he could see and analyze it slowly when he returned to his cell alone. Above a metal gate next to the square, a blue holographic projection was displaying the time, AM 8 to 29. The 3-dimensional holographic image looked so novel and eye-catching. It was 8:29 in the morning. At this moment, a young man took advantage of the other's distraction and suddenly came to Qing Chen's side and whispered, "You're finally here. You look just as good as the rumors say. I'm Lu Guangyi, sent by Qing Yan 3 months ago. You can call me Little Lu." Qing Chen. He paused and looked at the other. This Lu Guangyi looked about 24 or 25 years old, with short black hair. His right arm and left leg were fitted with mechanical limbs, and he even had mechanical eyes. Qing Chen could even see the spiral patterns in his eyes changing focus. His mechanical limbs were different from most of the convicts, both in terms of streamlined design and material. They looked very sophisticated. Qing Chen searched his memory, tracking the other's behavior. At this point, Qing Chen realized that Lu Guangyi had looked at him 21 times in just over an hour. And that was just the times he was in his line of sight. Qing Chen didn't know who this person was, but the way he spoke, it was clear that he knew him, and he was even using respectful language. According to Lu Guangyi, it seemed that Qing Chen's entry into this prison fortress had a purpose, but Qing Chen was afraid of revealing his crossover, so he didn't want to have too much interaction with Lu Guangyi for the time being. "I don't need your help for now. I can do some things on my own." Lu Guangyi shook his head like a rattle. No, I have to serve you well." Qing Chen also shook his head. "No one's personality is more noble than anyone else's. You don't have to use the word serve. At this point, Lu Guangyi said ingratiatingly, "No, you can order me around as much as you want. You can treat me as your dog, the kind that licks feet." Qing Chen was speechless. What kind of person would say such a shameless thing? What if I have athlete's foot? Lu Guangyi said unabashedly, then I can lick it well for you. Qing Chen was silent for a long time. Awesome. He was a bit baffled now. He had clearly crossed over with his body and consciousness. Why did he have such a weird past relationship? So, in the eyes of the people in this world, had he really lived in this world for so many years? Seeing Qing Chen still silent, Lu Guangyi whispered, "You were planning to approach Uncle Li as a newcomer this morning. That's brilliant. If we can get Uncle Li's help in this prison fortress, our plan will go much smoother." Qing Chen, what plan? What are you talking about? Can you be more clear? Lu Guangyi continued as if talking to himself, "I've been here for over 3 months, and I've gathered a group of usable people for you. Don't worry, they won't fail." The young man chattered. Qing Chen felt that Lu Guangyi seemed a bit talkative, while he just listened quietly, not knowing how to respond. That it was like playing Who's the Undercover. When you get a blank card, you have to wait for everyone else to speak before you can say anything. Otherwise, if everyone else's word is urine, and you're the first to speak and say it's drinkable, there will be a big problem. He searched in his mind and found that at breakfast, there were subtly hundreds of people around Lu Guangyi, each of them fitted with mechanical limbs. It seemed that these people were the subordinates Lu Guangyi had recruited after he came in. Seeing Qing Chen still silent, Lu Guangyi asked again in a low voice, "But, you also have to be careful with Uncle Li. Dealing with such a person is like asking a tiger for its skin. If we're not careful, we might end up in a passive position." "Sorry, I spoke out of turn." At this point, Qing Chen realized that the Uncle Li Lu Guangyi was talking about must be that middle-aged man. Lu Guangyi saw that he had gone to play chess with Uncle Li as soon as he came in, and mistakenly thought that he had come with a mission, but he was getting close to Uncle Li, not for some damn plan, but to survive. "What instructions did you bring this time?" Lu Guangyi suddenly asked. Qing Chen slowly turned his head to look at the young man. "A llama came from the south." The young man? Qing Chen ignored him and turned to leave, leaving Lu Guangyi standing there in a daze. "A llama came from the south? What kind of llama?"